Namaste and welcome to Viewpoint. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi on his first official visit to United States after President Donald Trump swears in as the president. So he's met with Tulsi Gabbard, he's met with Elon Musk, he's met with Donald Trump, and there seems to be a lot of positive outcomes which is coming from the meeting. So what is happening? What can be expected from these meetings? So let's discuss on that. We have with us Mr. Suresh Kochatill, a political researcher and analyst. Namaste ji.
Namaskar.
So we've seen the first meeting that Prime Minister Modi had was with Tulsi Gabbard. So the question that comes to our mind was, generally when heads of state meet, they meet each other first. But in this case, we have Tulsi Gabbard meeting him, who is now the director of the National Intelligence in the United States. So do you think it's some kind of a symbolic thing going on, or what's happening here?
Well, actually, ironically, it is her first official visit with anybody.
Right.
She was sworn in with the presence of Mr. Donald Trump. But she officially never met him. She just shook hands and said thank you and all that. But the official meeting has not taken place.
Right.
By the time Mr. Modi landed, and she had a meeting with him. So that's the first official visit by any head of state with Tulsi Gabbard. We all know that she holds a very powerful portfolio now.
Right.
All the intelligence heads of all, including CIA, will report to her.
Right.
And that's an extremely important. And for somebody who has been in the Democratic Party, traversing across to the Republican, with her family still being in the Democrat side, Tulsi Gabbard has now come up with a very powerful position.
And so is this also an indication that, in the previous Biden administration, there were a lot of national security concerns, be it Khalistan, be it Bangladesh, all of these.
True.
So do you think it's US's way of saying that now things will get a little better for you? Is that what they're trying to say?
More than better. In fact, if you look at the press conference and also the remarks in the White House at the same time, two different things. One was a sit-down, other was a stand-up formal stuff. The sit-down one, President Trump was asked this question, and also in the press conference, saying, what do you propose to do with Bangladesh? I think the question came from an Indian journalist who said that there's a deep state involvement in Bangladesh, and the accusation was that it's a US thing, and George Soros' son had met Mr. Yunus recently after the clampdown on US aid and all that. So President Trump very categorically said, no, we are not getting into all that.
Correct.
And he said, we'll leave it to Prime Minister Modi.
Yeah.
See, this is the same statement which he made when Benjamin Netanyahu came. I'm not getting into Gaza and all that stuff. Later on, of course, he said Gaza is a different thing. But let the Israelis deal with their own way. I'm not getting into it.
Same thing with Russia, Ukraine as well.
Yeah, so it's kind of a blank check saying you do what you want. You have my support. But I don't want to get into the fight. It's not worth the fight. President Trump is trying to steer away from problems where putting US Army or US assets is a risk.
Right.
So that's why he said Russia, Ukraine. He was kind of going after EU, saying EU is unnecessarily provoking. He said no NATO membership, borders where they are right now. So that means Ukraine has lost more in the war than Russia, obviously. So President Trump's main concern, of course, he signed an executive order just before meeting Prime Minister Modi, was on the reciprocal tariff. Which is correct. You would like to be treated the way you treat me.
Right.
Simple as that. If you treat me badly, I'll treat you badly. Simple. Right. So that's how the US wants to see itself. We have a $50 billion deficit with US, trade deficit. We need to fill that in. We started buying oil from US, and US claims they have the biggest oil reserves in the world, surpassing even the Saudis and others. But most of it is shale oil that is there, and he's going for big time into drilling. President Trump has made very clear to Prime Minister Modi that we need to bridge this gap.
Right.
Okay. Be it Harley Davidson motorbikes, which is hardly anything.
Correct.
It's a symbolic thing more than anything else. And then we import a lot of pistachios into this country, avocados from there. I think pistachios, almost 85% of what India buys is from the US.
Right.
And avocado, of course, avocado we're cultivating it here also now. So these are small things which add up big.
Right.
The big part of it is defense.
Okay.
Buying the F-35s or the missiles and other things. And President Trump made it very clear that he's going to give F-35 to India, which is very rare because only 19 countries, including their own allies, including NATO, have got it.
Right.
And most importantly, Israel has got it. And if India gets F-35 quickly off the shelf, if they give us 3 squadrons, then the deficit that is being faced by the Indian Air Force due to the lack of Tejas, which Air Chief other day said that HAL has failed to deliver.
Right.
Because of the lack of engines from GE for Tejas. So even if the engines come now, it will take a long time for HAL to integrate, test everything and all. But you have ready-made off-the-shelf F-35s. We can buy it.
Right.
See, America doesn't make weapons to put it in a museum or display. They make weapons to sell because they want more production. They want more employment in the US. So be it General Dynamics or be it Boeing or be it anybody for that matter, whoever is making aircraft is game for it. So you've got to sell those F-35s to us. If you give us 3 squadrons of roughly 36 aircraft, it will be a big relief for India because we are retiring 2 squadrons of MiG-21 in 2025.
Right.
So our squadron strength will come down to 30 or 29 or 30 now, which is a dangerous thing for a country like India facing a 2-front war with China and Pakistan. So President Trump has made very clear, business. Let's talk business. And he said Prime Minister Modi is a very tough negotiator.
Correct. He's a better negotiator.
He's a better negotiator, and naturally, I won't call it community by that, but the good Jews are always good negotiators. They know how to negotiate well. They do it pretty good. I think after them come the Japanese. Japanese are also very good negotiators. President Trump has also made it clear that his Prime Minister Modi is a very good friend. All those right boxes have been ticked off in the technology side, in the defense side. And also, he didn't say much about AI and other things. He's not getting into it, but he says we could use our talents together and all that kind of stuff. AI is a different ball game. We talk a big thing about AI in India, but most of the talent, which today I was reading an article in the Business Standard, most of the talent which are there in India on the AI side have left India.
Right.
Because we don't have that ecosystem yet here. So they're going to the US where they're getting fantastic salaries and they're moving there, which is exactly what President Trump wants in the H-1B stuff. He wants to get that kind of talent to build great AI products out there.
Right.
And then they talked about energy in terms of electricity. He said, we are going to give you, obviously, nuclear plants. They won't give us thermal plants, nuclear plants. So we have a time, we just almost kind of tied up with France for that also. When Prime Minister Modi, before he went to US, he was in France. We again have tied up a lot of defense stuff there. The most important thing I felt was one funny thing rather, was when President Trump was saying MAGA, MAGA, MAGA all the time, and Prime Minister Modi said it is MIGA.
He said made
in India, make India great again, and if both combine, it will become mega
partnership.
Yeah. So I think he's realized, President Trump has realized that 50 billion is a drop in the ocean for US. Right. They have a better huge trade deficit with China, which is a big issue. He has his own problem with European Union, which is very protectionist. It doesn't allow outside products to come into EU. President Trump is going to break that entire cabal out there, the entire mafia, if you can call it. The European Union is a mafia. He's going to break that. And of course, along the way, he's going to put on pressure, a lot of pressure on the countries which export into US, saying that we need a reciprocal. So if you are getting, let's say, 100 billion business worth from us, give us also 100 billion worth of business to do with you. So I think that is a good thing to do because at the end of the day, he has to look after his country. Just as Prime Minister Modi has to look after his country, which is Bharat. And President Trump is doing the same with the US. And any heads of state or any Prime Minister or President worth his salt will do the same thing. He has to take care of his people. And nothing wrong with that.
Correct. So by taking care of people, let's say one of the key components of the discussions was national security itself. So we've seen that 26/11 terror accused Tariff Rana that India has been repeatedly asking for extradition had been turned down these many years. Finally, he's going to be deported back to India right now. So what do you think has been the policy change, or why was the US so hesitant on letting that guy get deported, or when it comes to Khalistan activists, doing some action on them, deporting them? So they didn't do that till now, but now Trump has suddenly changed it.
Trump has used a language in the press conference many of us missed. He said he will go after Islamic terrorism with all his might.
Right.
Okay. Now, Tariff Rana is a part of Islamic ecosystem,
right,
which is Pakistan. So it's good news for us that he's mentioned that word, that he's going to go after Islamic terrorism. There's nothing much happening in Afghanistan. Afghanistan won't touch US right now. The main problems are going to be Iran, of course, its proxies, plus Pakistan.
Yeah.
These are two countries where US will face a huge thing because both the countries are nuclear armed. At least Iran has not openly said it. Pakistan is nuclear armed. So the way destabilization is happening in Pakistan with the mullahs and the military all rolling together, sooner or later Pakistan will collapse. And President Trump doesn't want what happened in Syria to happen there if the nuclear assets fall into the hands of the terrorists. So he will use the Israelis to take it out. Just as much he threatened the Hamas, saying that if you don't release the hostages by 12 noon on Saturday, all hell will break loose. So look at the language. It's a typical bravado, all hell will, all the bets are off, he said again. So that means it's very clear. So when he's dealing with India, he knows for one that India has a huge purchasing power.
Right.
If you want to give him 0% duty on Harley Davidson, so be it, boss, give it. What difference? We don't make that kind of bikes in India.
Right.
Come on. How many Harley Davidsons can they sell in India even if you reduce the duty? How many people can afford it?
Right.
So that's not a big thing for us. See, where you impose duty is very simple, Aditya, is when you have a competing product. For example, steel. We import a lot of steel into US, by the way. I think about 5% or something like that. China is the biggest culprit in that, dumping steel in the US. The US steel factories closed down because of that. Even now, the EVs made in China are still cheaper, even if you put 10% or 20% duty on it. So where do you put duties? You put duties on products which you feel that when it comes into a country, it will get impacted. For example, when Chinese started dumping steel and aluminum and everything into India, we kind of put our foot down.
Right.
And naturally, the domestic prices might go up in the short term. But at the end of the long term, at least your local units will start doing better, be it Tata Steel or be it RINL or Salem Steel or whoever it is, Hindalco and others. Everybody will pick up their baton and start running.
Right.
The problem is, that is where you impose tariffs. You can't impose tariffs on high-end bikes and then say, we will not let Harley Davidson come in. That's a socialist mentality. Kaane do yaar, kya farak padta hai? Let it come. We don't make. Suppose they say, no, we are going to get into 150cc bike segment. Then it's a problem for us because a bulk of our motorcycles are made in that segment.
Right.
Okay, or cars for that matter. He's going to say, I'm going to get into the 10 to 15 lakh segment or 20 lakh segment cars. That's a bulk of sales in India, including one between 5 and 12 lakhs also. So that is a segment which we should not allow into India.
Right.
If there's a reciprocal tariff, so be it. We are not selling cars in the US because we don't make those kind of cars. And it's not easy for the US to make cars to drive in India because we have a different system of the steering wheel. They have it on the other side, we have it on this side.
Right.
So they can't really overnight change their entire tools and their entire assembly system. But we will fight, we will negotiate, and it's very clear that India is a huge market. America wants access to it. We will give them access, but not to sell popcorns and chips and all out here, which is eating chips. I'm not talking the other chips. But we are willing to negotiate on the high value tariff stuff.
Right.
And where we don't have much of loss to be had on our local industry won't get impacted.
Right. So you actually covered a lot of points on the trade part, commerce part of it, some part about the national security as well. Another but resounding theme or discussion topic has been energy security, where if you see when Trump came on day one, he's like, we are going to get back into the oil thing and oil is going to be booming again. So that's one thing. That's a statement he made earlier. Right now, it's most likely like he's already made a customer of India that we are going to push oil to you, take it. Will India be in a position to keep taking oil from US when we know that, the price-wise, it is much better, cost-effective to get it from Iran or Russia?
See, the problem is Iran is it's a pariah nation today. You can't buy from Iran, at least till the regime in Tehran changes. US won't allow you to do it. Till recently, Russia was also out of bounds. The main problem that we have with the US in terms of buying oil is basically the distance.
Right.
It's not easy. Okay, it's a huge distance that we need to. Buying from Iran is just pretty close, but we can't. But the problem, what Trump is trying to do is twofold. One is he's trying to make US the major producer of oil. He's trying to reduce the dependence on Gulf countries, which used to be a big supplier of oil to the US. Now it's shale oil. He said, drill, baby, drill. So he's drilling. So you're going to get a lot of things. Second thing he's talking of is electricity. And that, I think, is a very important point. Nirmala Sitharaman in our union budget indicated that India was going to go for 100 gigawatts of renewable energy, especially nuclear energy, she said.
Right.
Now, when you talk about nuclear energy, there are 2-3 countries in the world which will sell it to you. One is Russia, which we already have a deal. Kudamkulam, we built more coming up, plants coming up in India. Then we have France, which is also building plants in India. The third is US. And US wants, again, it's a local manufacturing. They will make everything there and get it here and assemble it here. We have no issues because there is nothing called Make in India in that.
Correct.
The Make in India is in terms of the fuel rods and other things which go into running the plant.
Right.
Which anyway will be done in India. And we have the nuclear fuel complex in Hyderabad, which makes all the fuel rods for all the nuclear plants in the country.
Right.
So India needs to have a huge energy situation. India will have in another 5 to 10 years. We need to bridge that gap. We can't keep exploiting coal always and then depend on hydel power when it might fail if the rains don't come about properly.
Right.
But we need nuclear power.
But earlier when it came to nuclear power, we saw there was always some kind of a dance happening between US and Russia, that if you take a technology or plant from Russia, it would be said that US was upset with it, or if you move towards US, then Russia would be like, come on, you got to take it from us. But do you think now there's going to be a new kind of a dynamic with Trump and Putin having, better formal relationship? So do you think it will be easier for India to kind of do a balancing act between Russian tech and American tech for nuclear?
So the nuclear energy is a very crucial thing for India because Nirmala Sitharaman in her budget indicated that we need 100 gigawatts of power. We are planning to make in another 10 years, maybe 2047 she indicated. And we're going to go for small nuclear plants, not huge ones.
Right.
Which makes sense actually. And that's why Prime Minister Modi, when he went to France, when he visited these places where they make all this, and he had discussions with President Macron on that. Now, the main thing that we need to do is we can't put all our eggs in one basket. We can't be dependent on France. We can't be dependent only on Russia, or we can't be dependent only on US.
Right.
Because all these three countries can turn their backs to you at one day when the going is not good. And we saw that when we did the Pokhran thing last, especially when Prime Minister Vajpayee was there was a huge amount of sanctions on India. We couldn't get cryogenic engines, nothing for the ISRO and all that. We had a huge problems. So don't put all the eggs in one basket, spread it around. Buy something from France, buy something from Russia, buy something from US. The problem with Russia right now in terms of both the arms and armaments and also nuclear is that Russia will be finding a very tough situation to get out of this post-war era. Right. Their industry, military industry is destroyed totally. They're having a huge shortfall. So it will take a long time for Russia to generate revenue, start their oil and gas sales to Europe, mainly, which is a major customer, and then rebuild their industrial infrastructure. They, of course, displayed their aircraft in the Bangalore Aero Show and all that. F-35 was there. The Russians were also there with their Su-2, Su-25. That they are all there. They are all displaying the 5th generation aircraft, which we really don't have with us. But I think the main thing that we need to understand that we will buy from Russia. There's no doubt about it. But then we are seeing that what happened to MiG-29 and then in the further aircraft up the ladder is there been a lot of delays from Russian side, which is understandable because of the war they are in right now. So in the short term, we will buy more stuff from the US, we'll buy more from France, and of course, at a later stage, we will start buying stuff from Russia also. Because many of those fighter aircraft in India, which we have, are all Russian origin. So we need to keep them running. Remember, Mirage, recently we had a crash day before yesterday also. Mirage was bought in some 30, 40 years ago. It's outlived its life, but it continued to fly, just like MiG-21, which is called a flying coffin because so many pilots died. We never replaced our aircraft in the last 30 to 40 years. It's only in the last 10, 12 years, especially after Prime Minister Modi came in, there's been a renewed push to get new fighter aircraft for the Indian Air Force, get trainer aircraft for the Indian Air Force, which we use in Dundigal and also in Hakimpet in Hyderabad. These are very essential stuff. You never build roads on the border with China because, as A.K. Antony mentioned in his famous statement in the Lok Sabha, that because the Chinese will get upset if you build roads. Imagine a defense minister saying it. So now the game is very simple, Aditya. President Trump made there was a question asked to him about how do you deal with China and then with India. And he was very diplomatic about it. He says, he's a good friend of mine. We are having good talks. But at the end of the day, why US is giving India F-35 is because of China. India is not going to use it against Pakistan because Pakistan's Air Force is today in shambles. Post-Afghanistan, they are not getting anything from there anywhere. But India has to replace its aging Mirage. We bought a lot of extra Mirages from, I think, Qatar or Egypt just to get the parts because we didn't get the parts for the aircraft. We are cannibalizing the parts and using it in the other aircraft which is still flying.
I think that's also because there was a policy in Europe that parts cannot be sold to India, right?
Yes, sir. That's exactly what I'm saying. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. So buy from everywhere and keep those nations which are good to you in a good humor. So that's why India and France, you're seeing a good body language between President Macron and Prime Minister Modi. You saw something similar between because Trump has to show something results in the next 1 year in terms of employment. He's stabilizing the economy, he's reducing his deficit, he's putting people on the roads, getting the migrants out. All that he's doing is cutting out huge wastages which are there, which is great actually, wonderful, using Elon Musk and Doge and all that. But at the end of the day, he needs to provide employment. 6 months from now, when the honeymoon period is over, people will start asking questions, where is my job? And that is where he needs to show the results. So if you have more F-35 orders, you have more of surveillance aircraft, all this kind of stuff. So that's going to get a huge amount of employment in the US defense sector. And that is what he wants to do, and cars also for that matter. If he wants to sell cars in India, so be it. But we saw brands like Ford, which failed in India, in spite of making in India because they couldn't understand the Indian market. When McDonald's and KFC came in, I remember they used their famous statement saying, we don't use any local stuff. Our menu will be same as across the world. But today they're selling paneer tikka, they're selling fried rice. I mean, it's ridiculous. You never see that kind of stuff anywhere.
You know,
outside.
biryani, pizza. Stuff
Yeah,
like that.
biryani. So this is, when you are in Rome, do as the Romans do. Simple as that.
Correct.
And that is exactly what President Trump and Prime Minister Modi is doing. Quad was another aspect that was mentioned.
Correct.
We never
Quad
took
was
it up in
mentioned,
this
yes.
discussion. Quad was very important. He mentioned the word Quad. Because that is the extreme. He wants to balance it with BRICS. And another very important statement, Aditya, was the translink which is building up with Europe, which Prime Minister
Correct.
Modi had suggested. The cables running all the way, that entire corridor which is building with up to Europe and back to US again. So that's going to be a big thing which President Trump, if he's speaking about it, obviously he knows what it is. He's been briefed about it. So getting the US support is very important to bypass Pakistan, get into Middle East to Europe and get into that. It is a counter to BRICS, BRIC rather, not even BRIC, which is Belt and Road Initiative. The BRI is going to be a major hit, going to get hit by this President Trump's announcement of this particular India initiated the corridor that's going to come up. And that is going to be the big thing in the next, I think, 10 to 15 years. It's going to take time to build it. It's not an overnight stuff. It has got sea component, it has got land component, and then it's got an air component. So all the three are to be integrated together.
Right. So as a concluding question, so the visit is done, Modi is headed back to India. So do you think post the meeting in US with Trump, Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk, all of that, do you think now Modi could start implementing things in India in a different way? He may actually be more bolder about a few things, which he could not be during the Biden administration.
Two things. One is also the election scenarios have changed in India. There are no big elections coming up.
Right.
There's only a Bihar election which is due, and after that is UP election. We saw the recent polls that were done by a couple of news channels just a couple of days ago. It showed that Prime Minister Modi is back in saddle. He's getting 51% approval ratings. The NDA will score about 340 seats if the elections are held now and all that kind of stuff. But the elections are far off, another 4 years. He's got this 4 years with him. He needs to use all those 4 years really to make whatever he calls India the third largest economy in the world. 2047, a Viksit Bharat. For all that, these are the pieces of puzzle that need to be put in. It's France, it's Russia, it's US, everybody into it. Look at Saudi Arabia, the way it is changing today. Mohammed bin Salman is as modern as an American capitalist is.
Correct.
He is doing it what is good for his country. He knows the oil will not last forever. He needs to do something for that. How do you keep your people happy after that? Otherwise, the same Osama bin Laden came from Saudi Arabia.
Right.
Okay, he is from a family in Saudi Arabia. So naturally, he has to do that. And President Trump is very clear. At least what I like about him is he tries 100 things. 70 may succeed, 30 may fail. It's okay. But he's trying those things.
Right.
And way he's arm twisting Europe, I loved it. Because Europe was kind of sitting on the high horse, thinking nobody could touch them. They had the entire Shenzhen visa that was kind of bandied about. They had this, the entire currency was being manipulated, and President Trump didn't like it one bit. The euro came in. Britain has pulled out from the euro. All the stuff is, Europe is in a mess, basically.
Right.
I think except for France and not even Germany, France is the only country, I think, which is still economically powerful. I think all the other countries are going down the drain. Greece is already on the deathbed. And you'll see all of that going down the drain. And President Trump wants to build up that deficit. If he's able to reduce the deficit by 1 trillion by the next financial year, which Elon Musk is doing right now for him, it will be a big victory, because that will, one, bring down the inflation, and also bring down the gap between what the government needs to spend and what the government gets.
Right. Thank you so much for your valuable insights. So you heard today's discussion. What do you think about it? Please comment below. We'll catch up again. Namaste and Jai.